So for those of you who do not know Mynoo, I'm going to go ahead and start a little introduction because when she comes on, we will have a lot of fun in store. So Mynoo is both a serial entrepreneur and she is a spiritual master. So we get the best of both worlds. We get that spiritual wisdom and the business genius wrapped all in one. So very exciting. And Mynoo has downloaded much of what she shares with us over the past 9 to, I would say, 10 years. She was the go-getter businesswoman doing what they do. And then along came a spider, no, not a spider, but along came a master. Along came her spirit guides and said, well, maybe you want to pay attention to something else that's going on. And so she did. So she was in Bali for some time and downloaded much of what she's been sharing with us every week. So we're entering into a new series, and we are really excited to explore with her and see what comes up. So welcome everyone. Happy Thursday evening. This kicks off our new series. We will be, I think we're going to be going through the 10 commandments tonight. So I assume we'll be about 10 weeks in. And yeah, we'll look forward. Sometimes we'll have Q&A. Tonight we will not have Q&A because we have such a full packed evening, but you're always feel free to ask any questions that you might like in advance. You can send those via email to katpeters@me.com. I'll put it in the chat and just put Mynoo so in the subject line so I know to look for those. And then many of you did put questions in from the past that we didn't get to. So we are launching from time to time just a pure Q&A. So we will have a chance to answer any of your unanswered questions as we continue along. So welcome to everyone. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mynoo to get started.
Thank you, Catherine, and welcome everyone. Yes, I'm looking forward to our session today as I'm guided to really unveil with, for everyone, what are the 10 commandments for the new world. So the new world, the good news is the new world as it's meant to be is birthed fully. And that's great news because what many of you who've been doing my work for a few years, at least for the last 2 years, you've heard me talk about it's going to be rebirthed. The earth has chosen to rebirth itself in 2 years, and here we are. It has happened. It happened. The rebirthing itself took place. That process was complete on the 16th of May. And it's still the early days is quite, sensitive and precarious. That has been going on for a bit. And now that has all come together and the rebirthing is now anchored. So that's great. The key thing that we had to work on, that we had to watch out for is the propensity of our earth. It has rebirthed itself in the past and its propensity has been to start over. And what we were all working on, including the work that I was doing here and other work that I've been doing over the years, and there are some of you on this call who've been with me since 2015, doing something very specific to support the planet, to raise its vibe to a level so that the planet would choose to transform itself as a part of its rebirthing rather than start over. So that is what has occurred. It has chosen to transform itself rather than start over. And yes, this year came with a few surprises for many people. The way it's panned out was surprising. What occurred was not surprising, to me at least, because I was being shown what was to happen. So here we are. The planet has chosen to transform itself. The transformation is so huge that it is akin to rebirthing. What happens in a birthing process? The fetus is formed. It has its own environment. And when it is in that environment is its world. And it's a very different world. It's very contained. It's very cozy. It's perfect. And it's a world that is perfect for the gestation period. It's not necessarily the world that is perfect for this being once it is to move about, but it is perfect as it is developing. It's not perfect for its growth. Similarly, we've gone through various iterations on this planet, and that happens in all planets. This is not a session about that. In this planet itself, there have been many iterations, and that those iterations where the rebirthing takes place of the planet are often to return back to the life force and vitality that existed originally, because there is a call for a humongous growth spurt that is to occur. And that is what calls for the rebirthing to take place. Now, the planet was created with a particular intention. It was created as a playground of relationships. And it was relationships with each other, relationships with other living beings, relationship within ourselves, even internally, how the human body is formed, or an animal body is formed, or even a tree structure is formed. There's lots of relating that takes place internally as well. Everything that exists on this planet is always relating, and it is driven by relationships. So this is a playground for relationships. So anything that is not conducive to relating and relationships was endured for a while to see if it would recalibrate and get into the rhythm of relating. And if it did, that was great. If it didn't, it became extinct. And that in a very simple form, that was a cycle that played on. Now, humans as a species, as a race, came about on this planet. They were all about relationships. The only reason the soul being took the human form was the human form was a form that could survive on this planet, and the playground that the soul was experimenting with was this series of experiences that could only occur on this planet, which were all about relationships and relating. It was a game, and the game was going to be constructed by our own, when I say our, I mean the humans, creations. And it was meant to be in a playground of relationships. The way you construct a game, the way you actually bring about aliveness is through collaboration, through co-creation, and it's all about coexistence. There were various devices and tools that were presented to us to play with. Like the construct of the mind, which is not something that we are born with. We construct it, and it becomes our consciousness. We are whole and complete just with our subconscious being. So, as the mind started to play out, collaboration, coexistence, co-creation gave way to certainty. They're all meant to be the 7 C's at the same level. And we've done a whole series on the 7 C's. It wasn't that certainty is more important than collaborative co-creation. Certainty is as important as collaborative co-creation of coexistence. Choice is the other piece that we each humans were born with. And we started exercising a choice, and it was great. And in the pursuit of certainty, command and control came in. And command and control then created, through our own creation, our creator abilities, the construct of money and other resources, And the have and have-nots were one of the first demarcation points that came in. All of that was still okay, because it was a planet of relationships, and you can have haves and have-nots as long as they relate to each other, and they return back to that collaborative co-creation of coexistence. But the hunger for command control grew so much that we never returned to collaborative co-creation of coexistence. Not only did we not return to collaborative co-creation of coexistence within ourselves as humans, we actually turned on ourselves. And we started destroying the very environment that we were living in. And we had the advent of the previous 10 commandments. Because the era of the previous age was going to continue for various centuries still. So we had the advent of the 10 commandments at that time. And they really were a way of life. You know, it wasn't meant to be religious. It was just some basic, simple practices that if you followed them, you know, you would actually get back to that relating, which is what this planet is about. And it was quite a journey, you know, even for Moses, to get to the top of the mountain and get his tablet, which were the words of God that he received. And God got taken over by, organized religion. It really was just some words of the Creator that were meant to be supportive, to enable humans to recalibrate. The idea was that there would be a period of some of the humans and a critical mass of them that would go into a state of contemplation and really work out how to spread this way of conducting ourselves. They got taken over as another device to further accentuate command and control. And there was this series of dichotomies started spreading, series of polarities started, becoming more and more separating in the world. And there were many, many people, who are referred to in the spiritual circles as light workers. And there are many such realized that what was occurring vibrationally was so contradictory to the planet that physically it could destroy the planet, but vibrationally the destruction would be really whole and complete at every level. So there was about, I think 11 years ago, there was a movement that took place where even though people didn't know each other across the world, they were coming together and collaborating to create a grid, a planetary grid. And it was really a vibrational grid that would protect any additional saboteur energies from coming into the planet and allow those energies that had become saboteur energies on the planet to actually leave the planet. Now, maybe some of the stuff that I'm talking about makes no sense. Maybe it's really way out there. It really was way out there for me too. My mind I didn't live in a world like this, where this kind of wisdom was known to me. It wasn't. I remember spending days of silence in my room in Bali, and I would come out, and a friend of mine was sharing the house with me, and I would share with her the stuff that I'd seen. And to me, it was like, this is work of science fiction, if there was one. And she would say to me, oh yes, this has been written about by this person, this has been written about by that person. And then she would show me images of the sort of world and the kind of things that I had seen. And that's when I thought, okay, let me just not question it. Let this information just flow. There must be a reason for it. So I'm not going into all of that. There is a book that when Spirit guides me to, I will release it, that I have written called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the New Earth. I wrote it 4 years ago, by the way. Now, when I was reading it a couple of days ago, it was like, wow, it's relevant to us right now. So it'll come out soon, I'm sure. So coming back to where we were, we actually got so overtaken and so consumed by our own creations. And then we got so consumed by our consumption that we forgot that this world was all about, relating to one another. And the relating shifted from creating a thriving playground of collaborators and co-creators to one where each one for their own were fighting for survival. And suddenly, instead of thriving, it became all about survival. And in an environment that is about survival, conflict is one of the innate vibes of, well, it is the key innate vibe of a survival environment. So conflict started coming in. That conflict multiplied to such an extent that the soul being that chose this human form as an expression where it was going to expand itself even more by relating to others, it started feeling confined in this human form, experiencing the limitations of this human form. When the planet was created, originally, all the different pieces that formed the inhabitants of this planet, some of them were innate to it, that emerged from here. There were many others that were brought in, and that's a different session altogether, if anyone is interested. But the idea was that each one that came in, that was brought in, or was innate to this planet, was whole and complete in itself. They had their own innate vibration. The human form was given shape. It was constructed, as this perfectly formed machinery, and it came about with its own innate vibration of love. And the soul beings, many soul beings, chose the human form to play out the game of relationship and relating. And that's how it was. The human form was love, and the soul being was infinite and limitless and, expansive and indestructible. And that's what was playing out, except the vibe of command and control planted the seed of conflict. And the planting of the seed of conflict, it first began when the conflict was recognized at a soul being level. So the conflict was infused with this very high vibration of soul presence. And it began from within ourselves. Even before the conflict piece was launched, what became apparent was this wound of separation from source energy. When that first realization dawned on a soul presence about the limitations of the human form, where the expression of the soul was confined to the human form as the soul saw it, where others only received the soul expression through the human form, it became a constricting, confining experience for the soul presence, which was omnipresent. And the first piece that came in was a sadness about separation from source. And that is that deep-seated wound of separation. And that very quickly led on to that deep-seated inner conflict. The conflict of the soul wanting to express itself fully and experiencing the human form as confining. And this whole realization that existed before of the human form in its innate vibration of being love was lost. To such an extent that even the human form forgot that it was actually the innate vibration of love. From that inner conflict, the universal energies that were available to us as humans to serve us as we played the game of relationships. And the universal energies basically are, we call it the universe. And its role for us is to just apply a multiplied effect to whatever it is that we are vibrating. And the universe is not confined to just our physical body. It recognizes us as the human form that we are, in our full presence, in terms of this physical body, our connection to the higher self, and the vibrational frequency of love, which is an amplification frequency, which actually amplifies and exists as a holographic presence of our presence. The universe recognizes that, and when it picked up on conflict within us, conflict at a vibration of a soul presence, so it's a very high vibrational frequency of conflict that existed within us, the universe took that on and multiplied it. That propagation of conflict further exasperated the command and control situation, where command and control energy started being utilized to create even more conflict. And to that, we added into the mix the survival instinct. And when you're trying to survive, it's like, it isn't about thriving, because it isn't about co-creation. It is about each one their own. What was needed was what we were given, what we were born with was not sufficient. If we are to survive, the construct of money came about as an additional tool created by humans to further exasperate the whole command and control situation. And it literally was a little bit like having created a monster that just started taking over, consuming anything and everything it possibly could, until it got to a point where we literally started consuming ourselves, and the very resources that are the foundation to life started being consumed. When humans were created, there was a very clear distinction between life and what we are to do with this life. Life, so we are given, when we take birth, we are given this state of life. The other side of the state of life is death. They're both a state. Life is a state where the organism is breathing, or there's, and the other side is a state of death where the organism stops breathing. Nothing happens other than the ability to breathe. How we choose to live our life that is what brings about aliveness. To support us to live our life, utilize the state of life, we were given choice, we were given dignity, we were given our unique mastery. We call it source mastery. Choice, we are always choosing, even if you choose to make no choice, even if you choose to hand over your choice to something else or someone else. Dignity is the honoring of your own worthiness. These three pieces that we were born with, we were given. We were given life, which is you have the ability to breathe, so you can actually regenerate. Really, life is all about regeneration. In an environment of survival, there is no thought of regeneration. You're barely, you can sustain yourself. So we were given life, we were given choice, we were given dignity, we were given our own unique mastery, which keeps us in source. We call it our source mastery. Life is there. As long as you're breathing, it's there. To enable us to have the tools to come alive, which is what the game is, to come alive, we are meant to exercise choice, embrace dignity, and implement our mastery. And when we go into, so what happened was, with this command control environment going on, survival instinct having kicked in. Survival instinct, because you're surviving, even the idea of sustainability seems so distant that seems like a really ambitious goal to go for, so that we can actually become sustainable. Our prosperity is sustainable, our health is sustainable. That is so contrary, like every little element of what made up this planet, with the human form showing up in its creator mode, planted various devices for instant gratification, which then actually started consuming it, not only itself, but it actually started consuming the planet along with it. And that was, so 2020 was planned all along as a year of restoration. What was not planned was for 2020 to become the year of resurrection. It was planned as a year of restoration. However, what had occurred up to this point in time was such, and the previous 10 commandments had really played out in the way they had, and all what had happened was those commandments in themselves became a device to further exacerbate conflict. Rebellions occurred. It was a year that had seers that were able to, from the bygone ages. If you look at some of the seer documentations, there were conflicting images that they saw about 2020. They only talked about it in terms of planetary constructs. So on the one hand, there were these crazy fires and floods and, all the horrific destruction that Notre Dame talked about in his visions. And at the same time, even he talked about the description of heaven on earth, the sky filled with rainbows. And like a self-resurrection of animals and species, and talked about humans showing up in their majesty. There have been seers in all different parts of the world, by the way, that have described this year. There's also a description of this year where, it was like bodies after bodies just falling to the wayside as souls unite to depart. Now, all of that has been playing out already, So we've now, all of us together and the whole world together has experienced quite an unusual occurrence that we could never have designed or imagined. Once that choice was made and the earth chose to transform itself, it needed resurrection. And as a part of that resurrection arrived the 10 commandments for the new world. And in me sharing and declaring these 10 commandments for the new world, and as we go through the next 10 weeks, we are anchoring each one of those vibrationally. This time around, the intellect will play a part, but the restoration journey of the planet and all of its inhabitants is going to be a vibrational one. And the 10 commandments are very different in the nature of their description compared to the previous ones that we might have heard about. They're more about a description of the new world. Even in how the 10 commandments have come through, they are honoring us, each one of us. They're honoring our own self-worth, our own ability to discern and make a choice for ourselves. They've come through in such a way that it actually provides a very beautiful foundation, a structure, and an infrastructure within which we as humans can express and exercise 3 of our innate qualities: choice, dignity, and our source mastery. where these three qualities utilize the gift of life, which is the state that we are given. And we utilize these three applied to life, we are able to come alive. And the 10 commandments are such that it enables each one of us to get on that same playing field. So rather than clearing out the earth and starting over, it's almost like, okay, the clearing that you're in, everything that has occurred up to this point in time has occurred. And you've literally been catapulted up and placed onto a new vantage point. I've received elements of the 10 commandments. When you hear me say it, you would have heard me say this in the past. But them coming together as a set of 10, that is a very recent occurrence. The elements of it have been coming in. And now we are ready to receive the 10, and we will be ready to start implementing and anchoring each one of these. So today I'm just going to go through the 10 commandments. And like Catherine says, there's a lot of assimilation that is going to occur within you. And people that I have shared this with, as you know, some of you know, I run a business collective where I work with leaders who are building iconic brands. And they're being particularly coached and mentored on the relationship industry. And their businesses, despite the lockdown and stuff, are really displaying unprecedented results, unprecedented performance. Now, with them, when I've discussed the 10 commandments, because each one shows up as a leader, and they've allowed it to assimilate, it takes a few weeks, actually, for that assimilation to take place. So be prepared for your own ahas. Keep a little notebook, or have the notes section on your iPad or a voice recording thing ready. Because what you get from me sharing each of these 10 commandments will be insights and nuggets for you to implement. I shared the 10 commandments as the 10 commandments for the first time in their very rudimentary form with the group that participated in a program called Pivot. And even there's Connie, who's here on the call as well. It literally transformed her perception of what was going on for her and what was occurring in the world and the context within which she was operating and emerging. So just be prepared for yourself to utilize this understanding. They're meant to be a foundation, and let's make it a solid one. So what are the 10 commandments? The first commandment is, unknown is the known. So what we know, that pie that you sometimes see, there's a small proportion that you know. There's a slightly bigger proportion that you don't know. And there's a big chunk that you don't know. And life, you carry on, living your life as if what you know, and what you don't know is the world. And we completely shut out the unknown that does not fall in those two areas. Well, the first commandment is know that unknown is the known. What this means, that we're going to go into each one of these, but I'm just going to give you a little sliver of what that means. What it means is, if you remain very attached to the known, what you know, the world will just pass you by. Because the world as you know it is in the realm of the unknown. Unknown is the known. And next week we are going to dive deep into that. What does that actually mean? How you work with that understanding. But right now, even just knowing that, okay, unknown is the known. I mean, did we know that there's lots of predictions about the pandemic, and that gave rise to lots of conspiracy stuff that it was all planned and planted. Sure enough, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. The bottom line is that how it has panned out across the planet is not how it was meant to. And the unknown is the known factor, which ultimately as humans, we just had to go into a space of distancing ourselves socially. And how amazing that the phrase social distancing was used. It no longer is social distancing, because the idea was social distancing where you go into yourself. And then some of us stepped out, Catherine and me did, and we decided to make it a physical distancing, not a social one. And we began with this online series of navigating the unknown, long before others took on Zoom and started doing these Zoom gatherings. It was never about social distancing. This is a planet of relationships. Really was about physical distancing, but to bring about a return to center within humans, social distancing, linked with fear, linked with panic, had to be spread across the planet. And that was necessary for the elements of nature to be released from the shackles of control that humans had placed on them, so they could start reclaiming themselves. The universal energies applied to them as much as they applied to us. The multiplier effect kicked in. And we've had so much of nature reclaim itself. All of that occurred as unknown is the known. We knew various ways in which air quality could be improved, or the ozone layer, the hole in the ozone layer could be closed. None of that was necessary. It happened. Because unknown is the known played out in this way. It feels scary, but actually it's a phenomenal opportunity. Commandment number 2, uncertainty is certain. What is certain is uncertainty. Every time you think that, okay, we have it under control, we now understand it, something occurs and things shift. So once you get that, okay, it's important for things to be certain. Well, what is certain now in the realm of unknown is the known is uncertainty. Even though it doesn't necessarily make full sense, well, it's not going to. It's uncertainty that is certain. Commandment number 3. This is something we have been experiencing for a long time, which is that change is constant. Many of you would have heard me talk about minimize the variables. Get a few constants in your life. If everything is a variable, it becomes disconcerting. So even accepting that change is what is constant allows you to be in your center when everything around you is changing very rapidly. And it is one of the 10 commandments. Just like when the previous commandments arrived on the tablet, they were the commandments that were for this entire age that has just gone. We have entered a new world. It is on. It's game on. And it is showtime. It's not showtime. It's preparation for showtime. But game is on. In that preparation for showtime, we are here sharing. You're amongst, many of you are here amongst the first few people that are hearing the 10 commandments for the first time. So change is constant. When I say change is constant, it isn't just change outside of you, even change inside of you. You will notice different tastes, different fragrances that you like. You know, perfumes that were your signature will just land differently. What makes you happy will start to shift. Number 4, it's a death of survival, and it's a thriving instinct that counts. And you've heard me say this many times. In thriving, survival is taken care of. Sure enough, it's a change of state for survival. The survival instinct doesn't need to be the one that's breathing. It does not need to be the one that's propagated. It's already dead. At a foundation level, it's a death of survival. So when you're thinking about saving or thinking about your health and well-being, planning all of that, think about thriving. Thriving automatically brings into your mind an understanding that you're not alone. You're going to thrive with everything and everyone around you, and they're going to thrive too. Looking forward to that particular session. Commandment number 5. Take nothing for granted is the modus operandi. That sort of flows, when unknown is the known, uncertainty is certain, change is constant. It's about thriving, not about surviving anymore. Thriving means survival is taken care of. Take nothing for granted is the modus operandi. Imagine the yumminess, the juiciness, the sauciness it brings about in a relationship if you take nothing for granted. There's nothing worse than being taken for granted in a relationship with another. So what does this actually mean? When you take nothing for granted, you are vigilant, you are alert, and you are always in a mode of creation. We were meant to be in the mode of creation rather than consumption. And even as you consume, you are savoring what you consume, the flavors. And this is something that was enabled, all of these things, a remembrance returned back at a core level to the human race with this extended period of lockdown. Where we started noticing what we truly value. And it wasn't about rushing on another shopping binge. So many addictions that we had, which were consumer-oriented, consumption-oriented, just have fallen away without need for any mega therapy. All it took was a few months of lockdown. So taking for granted that a way to overcome certain situations, certain habits, certain ailments, or the way to achieve something is, being very attached to a fixed way of achieving that. Can't take anything for granted. So anything is possible. And there are literally every commandment, there are 2 sides to it. There's one side where you follow the commandment and you go with the flow. Well, when there's unknown is unknown, what's the flow? Well, just go with the flow. Show up every single day. Be present. Take nothing for granted. Savor every moment. And it's about thriving. So make every moment a moment of thriving. Now, when you make every moment a moment of thriving, you are automatically, recognizing the connectedness between us and each other, between us and our environment. And that peace, that oneness that we've been talking about, that we've been hearing for all these years, becomes real in a very physical way. You don't have to meditate to experience it. It just is. This is a really exciting one. I've been working with each one of these over the past several weeks. Take nothing for granted is the modus operandi. Anything goes and anything is possible as long as it's about thriving. The thriving provides that check and balances. How perfectly orchestrated these commandments are. It's amazing. Number 6, there is an up-leveling from alignment to flow to coherence. So if you think it was good to get aligned and get on the same page, that's great. And you have the opportunity to benefit from this up-leveling, from alignment to flow. Alignment often is very mental and emotional. Alignment is very mental. Flow brings in the emotional piece in it, and you feel in flow. Coherence is full spectrum, where whatever it is that you thought you were getting aligned to, you're getting in flow with, you are in coherence with this. There is nothing incongruent. It's just so. You complete each other's sentences. You think of something and it manifests. That's how you know you're operating from coherence. And many of you, I know that from talking to many of you, there are several of you that are here on this call that are experiencing this coherence. Certainly every person that is in the journey into miracles, each one of you have had some phenomenal experiences of you think and it happens. Of physical objects. And that is an indication of coherence. And it's meant to be that way all the time. And when you take nothing for granted and you declare the intention to be in coherence, it calls you to be present. And when you are present, you're in the moment. The moment becomes, and a moment has got no boundaries. And it's moving really fast. So it calls you to be completely in tune and in rhythm with the presence of your own presence. And you start presencing you, because that's what you have. And you are human, which is the innate vibration of love. That is an amplifier. And you house this eternal being, which is the soul being. That is limitless and indestructible. All of that becomes into your conscious awareness. You can imagine, we are now at a point with commandment number 6. We have 4 more to go. We already are in a very solid foundation, even though the elements of our nightmare, where unknown is the known, uncertainty is certain, and change is constant, are playing out. Commandment number 7, unconditional acceptance, is the WD-40, which is a lubricant. And what it lubricates is expansion. So if you wish to expand and if you're feeling stuck anywhere, get to that point of unconditional acceptance as rapidly as you can. And unconditional acceptance is whole and complete unconditional acceptance of what is. The moment you go into that, whatever it is that you were stuck with literally gets unstuck, drops off, and you can literally take that leap forward and off you go, expand. Commandment number 8. Move from sustainable to regenerative. Survival is what makes sustainable as, yes, this is amazing. And it is. But thriving presents to you the opportunity to create something that generates itself. So you don't spend your energy to start over again and again and again. This commandment by itself completely releases false starts. We've been implementing this in our business collective, and it's phenomenal to see the unleashing and unshackling that's taking place within these businesses. When all their competitors have closed off or are diminishing, they are unshackled and unleashed, having the largest grossing months of their time in business. This one, moving to regenerative, where you create something and it generates itself. Number 9, this is a move from spectacular results, which is a major conflict creator in the past, to extraordinary results. Extraordinary results, as we define it, are unprecedented performance, the spectacular pieces there, operational excellence, and transforming quality of life for yourself, for your stakeholders, which includes your family, and in business it has other stakeholders, and the planet. All 3 occurring at the same time. If any business, if any of you are only focused on spectacular for yourself or for your business, the playground is not that. It is one that calls for extraordinary results. So be prepared for a bumpy ride. We will see many quite, humongous collapses of organizations and institutions even that fail to make that switch to extraordinary results. And number 10 is the foundation of the 10 commandments. It is a move from command, control, conflict, competition to collaborative co-creation of coexistence, foundationed on thriving. These are the 10 commandments. We will be uploading this on Facebook Live, and of course it will be uploaded on my YouTube. Even assimilating all of these together is an important preparation for you for the deep dive that is going to take place. And just like with all other sessions that we have done so far, in the series that Catherine and I have been working with, each time we do a deep dive into any topic, it's very practical, it's very pragmatic, it's very precise. And that's what will occur with this one too. So thank you for participating. And we are just on the dot. An hour is up, and I pass it back to you, Catherine, to complete our session today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mynoo. Wow, I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of information in there, the 10 commandments. Hopefully you all got them down on paper. I know I've been through the pivot, and been working on these 10 commandments, and it's just a lifelong journey. So yeah, watch this again on YouTube or on our Facebook Live and keep working the process, because we have 10 weeks. Is that correct, Mynoo? We'll have 10 weeks to work our 10 commandments and see what else comes up along the way. So as we close, as always, yes, thank you, Mynoo, for that wisdom. Absolutely extraordinary. That's a word we all need to be using these days. And you can use abundance too, because that's my word. If you would like to put your words for Mynoo in the chat, as always, we would really love that. And again, I say my word is abundance. It's magical, mystical, and always over delivers. Thank you so much, Mynoo. And we have inspirational. Anybody that wants to add a word, just pop that in the chat. Love to hear from you. Thank you, Samantha. And we have delicious, expansive. Yes, there's a lot of words here. Revising again, and I'm sure my journey will be very beautiful and in abundance. Thank you, Asha. Profound, excited to dive into these and assimilate. Exactly. Come alive and thrive. Thank you. Increased awareness from what's hidden inside. Yes. What we now know, we didn't know, but we do know some things that we didn't even know we know. It's very interesting when you go deep diving into that. Wonderment-ing. Love that. Full spectrum thriving. My goodness. And surrender, of course. I think these words are absolutely magnificent. Hopefully I did not miss anybody. You can continue to add any words that you like. I know we have such deep gratitude for Mynoo. She comes over and over again every Thursday evening, and of course for the Human Vibe Attunement. You guys do not want to miss that. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I'm not sure what organ we are working on right now. Mynoo, can you speak to that?
Yes, we've been working on the dental cavity actually, and so there are certain nodal points in our body which have an impact on all the organs, and the dental cavity is a really big one like that. So yeah, we're working on the dental cavity and its links to various organs. Yesterday we worked on, or this morning, we worked on the connection of the dental cavity to the nervous system. And the time before that, we focused on the dental cavity and the heart. We have one more session on the dental cavity, so we'll see what else emerges. We're right now up-leveling the human form.
So you guys really do want to try that out. It is beyond meditation. It's a whole nother level. So let me just poke my head in here to a few more words. Mysterious, of purpose of life unfolding slowly, numinous love, resounding, brilliant, extraordinary. Get that little extraordinary back in there. We love it. Thank you. Thank you, Mynoo and Catherine. Expansive, exquisite, extraordinary. Feel empowered with all of you in this group. I agree. I'm so empowered to be here with each of you. Exciting. Thank you. Tuesdays, Thursdays meditations are on Facebook Live, and of course you can come on this exact Zoom link. You can see use this exact Zoom link to get in. Incredibly deep, new beyond, etc., etc. I think we will close with that. Thank you all so much. We'll see you Thursday here in the evening. And again, you have Saturday and Thursday that you can join on as well. So looking forward to seeing you Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. So that is early for me.
Thank you all.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for a lot of new people joined today, and we really enjoyed that. Thank you, Heather. Welcome. And thank you, Danielle, for inviting Heather. Good to see you. And thanks to everyone. Always great to see you, and we'll see you right here next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
New beyond, incredibly deep. More words coming in. Oh my goodness. All right, we'll say goodbye tonight, but we'll see you right here.
Bye-bye.
Guys.
Bye.